he was dead on my table until I reached inside him. The call came at 3 in the morning, and the first thing Detective Gallo said to me was, "Eris, don't eat breakfast. That's never a good sign." I'm a forensic pathologist. My stomach is bomb-proof, but Gallo has a flair for the dramatic. Still, a call like that means it's bad. It means it's weird. It means I'm not getting back to sleep. But tonight, it felt different. The air was heavy, charged. Gallo owed me a bottle of very expensive whiskey for this. The guest of honor was on my table, shrouded in a plastic body bag. Kalen Asher. That was the name on the preliminary report. Investment guy, corner office downtown. Weekend hunter. The kind of man who owned more camouflage than actual clothes and probably called his rifle sweetheart. He was found in his condo. Neighbors heard a gunshot. Cops kicked in the door and found him. The report said he'd been holed up in there for months, acting erratic, paranoid. The interesting part, the part that got me out of bed, was Gallo's note scrawled on the bottom. Head wound is obvious. Check the chest. Check the eyes. Something is wrong. I unzipped the bag. The smell of copper and salt hit me first. Then the visual. The top of his head was gone. A catastrophic exit wound from a shot fired up through the mouth. A classic, if messy, suicide. Case closed, right? Except Gallo was right. Something was wrong. His eyes were gone. Not recently. The sockets were empty, but the flesh around them had healed into puckered, glossy scars. They looked like two perfectly round, burnished coins pressed into his face. Old wounds. At least 6 months, I figured. Then there was the chest. A single, clean, impossibly straight line ran from his clavicle to his navel. It wasn't a jagged tear or a clumsy cut. It looked like it had been drawn with a laser, like someone had unzipped his skin. My first thought was that another ME had started the autopsy and been pulled away. "Lena?" I called out, my voice echoing in the sterile room. Lena, our night shift lab tech, poked her head in. She's a tiny woman who always looks like a startled bird. "Yeah, Eris? Nobody else has touched Mr. Asher, have they? This chest incision?" She shook her head, hands clasped in front of her. "No. He came in like that. Gallo said they found him that way." "Fuck," I muttered, more to myself than to her. She retreated, pulling the heavy door shut behind her. Alone again. I put on my gloves, started my recorder. Autopsy commenced at 4:17 a.m. Subject is Kalen Asher, male, mid-60s. I ran my gloved finger along the incision. The edges were perfectly bloodless, sealed as if by heat. This wasn't a wound made by a person. To cut through a sternum like that, you need a bone saw. Something with teeth and power. It's a brutal, messy process. This was elegant. I examined his hands. His fingernails were shredded, broken down to the quick. I scraped out the gunk underneath and put it under the scope. Splinters. Old, lacquered hardwood. From his floor, maybe? It looked like he'd been clawing at the boards, trying to get away from something, or trying to hold on for dear life. I dug into his file. 6 months ago, Kalen Asher had been on a hunting trip deep in the Nahanni Reserve. The kind of place you have to fly into. He was the only survivor. The official report cited a bear mauling. His friends were never found. He was airlifted out with severe facial trauma. That explained the missing eyes. But the scars, they didn't look like they were made by claws. They looked like someone had used a melon baller. So, the story was taking shape. A man survives a horrific trauma, loses his friends, loses his eyes. He spirals into paranoia and depression, becomes a recluse, and finally eats his shotgun. It was tragic, but it made sense. Almost. The incision in his chest was the piece that didn't fit. I had to see what was inside. I took a pair of rib spreaders, expecting to have to crank them hard to crack the sternum the rest of the way. But I didn't have to. The moment I inserted them and applied the slightest pressure, his entire chest opened up. The sternum wasn't cut, it was unlatched, like a locket. The bones had been pulverized from the inside out, turned to dust, but the incision on the outside was pristine, and inside, his organs were all there, but they were displaced. Pushed to the sides, compressed against the walls of his thoracic cavity, as if to make room for something. In the center of the newly formed space, I saw it. It looked like a single, perfect glass marble, shimmering under the surgical light. It was greenish gold, with a dark, rectangular slit in the center. A goat's eye. Fucking goat's eye, sitting in the middle of this man's chest. What the hell kind of killer leaves a calling card like this? Was it some kind of ritual? My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it, trying to stay clinical. I reached in with my forceps to retrieve it. I had to know what it was. The moment the metal tips touched the object, it blinked. All the air rushed out of my lungs. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't a marble, it was an eye, and it was looking at me. Before I could pull back, something shot out from the dark cavity and wrapped around my wrist. It wasn't flesh. It felt like 1,000 tiny, needle-sharp bones, all clamping down at once. I felt my radius crack. A scream tore from my throat, raw and animal. I yanked, pulled, but I was caught. Trapped. I could hear Lena shouting my name, rattling the locked door, but it wouldn't budge. Then, with a series of wet, cracking sounds, Kalen Asher's ribs began to bend outwards. They snapped from his spine, unfolding like the petals of some hideous, skeletal flower. From the void in his chest, something began to uncoil. It was pale and slick, glistening with gore. It pulled itself out of the body, shedding the man's organs like a snake sheds its skin. It was humanoid, impossibly tall and thin, its bald head almost scraping the ceiling. It stood on the table, dripping, and looked down at the empty husk of Kalen Asher with what I can only describe as disdain. It had no face, no eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just a smooth, blank canvas of skin. Then it turned its head to look at me, and I saw them. 2 goat's eyes, identical to the one I'd seen in the chest, were embedded in its chin. They swiveled in their sockets and focused on me, blinking slowly, one after the other. My terror was so absolute it was paralyzing. I was on the floor, my broken wrist clutched to my chest, unable to do anything but stare. The creature stepped off the table. It moved with a weird grace, its long limbs silent on the tile. It picked up a scalpel from my tray, held it up to the light, examining it with a strange curiosity, just as I had done minutes earlier. Then its chin eyes fixed on me again. It cocked its head, a perfect imitation of my own inquisitive gesture. It dropped the scalpel. It walked to the heavy steel door, the one Lena was still beating on from the other side. It didn't touch the handle. The lock just clicked open with a loud metallic snap. The door swung inward. The thing stepped out into the hallway and was gone. I don't know how long I lay there before I could move. My mind kept replaying a stupid playground rhyme my grandmother used to scare me with when I was a kid. See him once, he knows your name. See him twice, you've joined the game. I crawled to the phone on the wall, my hand shaking so badly I could barely dial. Gallo picked up on the second ring. What is it, Eris? Did you find something? My voice was a ragged whisper. Gallo. The tapes. The surveillance from Asher's apartment building. Do not let anyone watch them. For the love of God, burn them. Stay away from that place. Why? What did you see? I finally understood. I understood why Kalen Asher's eyes had been carved out 6 months ago. He'd seen it on that hunting trip. He'd seen it once, and he knew it was coming back for him. He spent half a year trying to hide, clawing at his floors in terror, before it finally climbed inside. Removing his own eyes didn't save him. I had seen it too, right here in my morgue. I saw it once, I choked out, the words catching in my throat. I think I'm its next appointment.